Oh, what the actual living? You would think for the 15 years that this movie has been out, and with my, 15 years in November, and with my rewatch of this 2 weeks ago, that I wouldn't have this much hatred for it. No. Rewatching this, even as a guilty pleasure, the Twilight Saga New Moon, it still sucks. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the revisited Twilight Saga reviews. We're continuing this thing off with the worst one, obviously, by a landslide, by a country mile, without the shadow of a doubt, the Twilight Saga New Moon. This time is directed by Weitz, has the same screenwriter of all of these movies, based on the book by Stephanie Meyer. And before I go into this, I just want to go into the production history with this one, because we got a lot of shit we need to talk about with this first this first sequel, because this is not going to be a very positive review. I am about to raise the fucking roof talking about this.
You son of a bitch!
After the release of Twilight in 2008, Summit Entertainment immediately saw money on the table for a new franchise, and so they decided that this was going to be a big money maker following the early success of Twilight on November 22nd. And so they started filming this in 2009 for it, and this movie was scheduled to come out on November 20th, 2009. They filmed this in 2009, March to May, and this movie came out on November. And this movie has received mixed to negative reviews with the story, for the direction, the tone, and the performance of Taylor Lautner, but the effects, the score, pacing, and Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart's performances has been praised. And this grossed $711 million. It broke numerous box office records, which was surpassed by Twilight and beaten by Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. And this movie was the 7th highest grossing movie of 2009. With Avatar, with Harry Potter, Ice Age, and Transformers, Sherlock Holmes, and Angels and Demons and such. So this movie set some big box office records, and at the time of release, this movie, a lot of audiences were still enjoying it, but this was the one where it was going to really highlight all the flaws that this franchise was going to have. So you could definitely see a lot of that into this film. And when I first saw this, even when I was younger, I was just okay on it, you know? I thought the movie was just okay, but it was fundamentally flawed. But the more time has gone on over the years, this was the one that I've always had this most animosity and hatred for. So in this movie, of course, we follow a plot of this with Bella this time around. She's happy with her undead boyfriend, Edward, but while celebrating her birthday, his family of vegetarian vampires. See, these movies are guilty pleasures, but I gotta laugh at some of the stupidity here. A frightening incident convinces Edward that he's simply too dangerous to be around her, and he decides to leave her angry, depressed, and frustrated to ensure her safety. Then she starts looking for companionship. Then Victoria and Laurent on revenge for wanting to kill Bella for the death of James, and Jacob becomes part of the werewolf pack.
That's what we're dealing with here.
You fucked up, bitch!
I was looking forward to rewatching doing this review series, especially when it comes to this one, to see maybe if I watch these movies, maybe I may end up being all wrong all along, and I'll actually really like this one as a guilty pleasure. And I was hoping that things would take a turn for the better, and of course to see how this would go and what this was gonna be. So I was interested to see how this was gonna go for my rewatch. Usually when I enter some bad movies, some people say it's not good or it's not great, but sometimes I end up really enjoying a bad movie or such, or I can really enjoy a guilty pleasure, or really be on the minority. Like, I actually like this movie, I actually love this movie. Not the case with this.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Rewatching the Twilight Saga New Moon recently, this motherfucking movie was boring, and this was abysmal, and it was a complete torture hell hour to get through. This is a 130-minute long movie that I swear to God feels like 3 hours and 27 minutes. There was a point in this movie when I was watching this movie was as boring as a junkyard dog. There was a point in this movie when I was rewatching this that I checked my DVD player or 4K upscale Blu-ray player, because I borrowed the DVD collection from my sister to watch the first three, with the last two borrowing the 2-part Breaking Dawn movie from my mom. And watching New Moon, I realized I still had an hour and 2 minutes to go until we came to the end of this movie, where I was like,
I hate that piece of shit.
What the fuck happened? Hey! We live in a society of laws!
I was literally angry by the end of my rewatch how much I hated this movie. And for someone who says this series is a guilty pleasure, this is not only just the worst sequel in the Twilight franchise, this is one of the worst vampire movies ever. This is one of the worst book to film adaptations ever. This is one of the worst movie sequels of all time. And this is one of the most boring films of all time. This is complete fucking torture. There's almost little to nothing nice I can say about this. And for someone who is a guilty pleasure fan of this franchise, and for someone who is a big vampire, werewolf, creatures of the night fan, how much this movie just angered me to my freaking animosity by the time I rewatched this. Especially on my Instagram story, and I was laughing at some of this shit. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get this ass beating going, shall we? Before I kick this movie's ass to the 10th power. Positives, I'm saying this just to have something nice to say, because as I said in my other rants, no matter how much I hate a movie, unless of course I can't find a single thing to talk about nice, I respect that a filmmaker tries. I'm trying to see that whenever I watch a bad movie. I want to give credit to where credit is due. The only positives I can say of this, the cinematography in this movie is fine. Javier Aguirre's beau is a big improvement over the first one. Everything's a lot more colorful and vibrant. The cinematography overall is visually good. It looks great visually. Some of the cast in this movie is good, especially Eddie Gagothy, Peter Fasinelli, Ashley Greene, Nikki Reed, Anna Kendrick, Michael Welch, Dakota Fanning, Elizabeth Reeser, Michael Sheen, who's having a fun time, Billy Burke, and Kristen Stewart, surprisingly, despite some extreme overacting at points where it is over the extreme at points. The acting, for the most part, is fine. The few moments of action is also fine. I love the moments where you have the characters where the werewolves are killing Laurence, or the one werewolf pack member tries to kill Bella. I like those moments. Which I laughed at and I enjoyed on my Instagram story with Felix whooping Edward's ass. I love that. Even though Robert Pattinson, Batman all the way, Battison all the way. Great fucking actor outside of these movies though. I know how much he and some of these other actors hated doing these movies. So the few moments of action is fine. I will also say Chris Weitz' direction is fine. Chris Weitz does everything he can for what he's given. He's directed some good movies, like The Golden Compass is decent. I like the American Pie movies, which I will say I appreciate the darker tone.
Hello guys, it's Editing Joshua here. I just forgot to mention, while I was editing this, I realized when I did my rant on this movie, I forgot to talk about the music. So I will say the score by Alexandre Desplat is really damn awesome. It's fantastic. It might be my favorite of the Twilight scores. There's between this and the Eclipse and Breaking On Part 2. But I will say the score by Alexandre Desplat is great. It's really well done, especially the full moon theme that plays during the credits. So it's a great score and it's willing to go in so many different directions. I will also say the main soundtrack is great here. You have Death Cab for Cuties singing Meet Me on the Equinox. You got Band of Skulls, Thom Yorke, Lee, The Killers, Anya Marina, Muse makes a return, Black Rebel, Motorcycle Club, Seawolf, Grizzly Bear. So many different people for this soundtrack, but the soundtrack does come in handy for this movie, and it really works very well. Especially the songs during the credits, which I really do enjoy. So overall, I have to say the score and the soundtrack is really well done. I just wanted to mention that because I unfortunately left it out in the actual filming process of this, because the review is already getting long enough. Now let's get back to the video.
Moving into the mix aspect, I wish that Victoria was in this movie a lot more. Now, when it comes to this movie, I think Victoria is interesting as a character. I think Rachel Lefevre is fine as she is, and she is fine, especially for a redhead. Like, one of the more underappreciated redheads, absolutely.
Try to keep up.
I will say she does fine for what she is given. She's not given very much, but I think for her in this movie, I think she does a decent job for what she is required and what she's being asked of. The problem is, I wanted more of her. You had this whole story of her and Laurent going after Bella, and I actually really quite like that in here. I like that. I think it's a pretty interesting idea. I think it's a pretty interesting moment. She is a quite underrated actress that deserves to be in a lot more. And I will say I appreciate some of the effects here. Some of the effects in this movie look decent here. You also have some other actors like Daniel Cudmore and Cameron Bright and Jamie Campbell Bower, who would go on to be in the last two Harry Potter movies after this, and Christopher Heyerdahl. I think they do fine for what they are given here, especially Colossus, which rewatching this, I didn't even know it was Colossus until I looked up. I'm like, hey, that's Colossus from the original X-Men movies, at least one of them. It was awesome to see. Despite what they had to work with, they did their job. Now it's hard, who the fuck did not do their job with this? I'm gonna say this right now. There are way worse movies that I've seen than this. There's certainly a secondary worse Twilight movie than this, which is nowhere near as boring as this. But I'm struggling to find out and struggling to say this is the most embarrassing one. This is the one where nothing fucking happens.
Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. Something about a map. Nothing's happening. It's over. A lot of people in the audience look pissed.
Let's get into some of the other negatives here. Jacob Black as a character, this was the movie where I really hated Jacob in this. Cause it's an on and off thing with him. He is so back and forth in this movie, like, Bella, we can't be friends. It's not you, it's me. Don't come to talk to me or you're gonna get hurt. And there's moments where it's like, Bella, don't do this. He's not your love. I can be better than this. And it's just so fucking back and forth watching this damn movie on rewatch where I'm like, make up your damn minds, Jacob. Make up your damn mind. That's what it felt like with his character here. And it also doesn't help that Taylor Lautner is giving jack shit to work with. And his performance in this is very not great. I feel bad for this actor because I feel like if he is given a second chance like Robert Pattinson, he could really do a great film and be awesome. But this script allows him jack shit to work with, and it also doesn't help that he has a character who's going to get progressively worse as these movies go on. So he is just so back and forth in this movie, so bad here. There's also characters in this movie like Laurent, who's only in this to get fucking killed off. So they barely don't do anything with him. So what was the point of bringing him back if you were gonna kill him off? You just wasted Eddie Gazaki's time with this shit. Pacing of this movie is so fucking boring and so fucking draggy here. This movie is pacing. I get the story of this movie and I get the pace of it. It's meant to be more of a slow burn. But for 130 minutes, this felt like an eternity to get through. There was points where I stopped and pressed play back and forth because I was so fucking bored watching this. It felt like this movie would never end. And there's moments where it gets interesting here. And when the moments where it does get interesting were like Victoria getting revenge for James' death, or the Volturi, or the treaty between vampires and werewolves, it doesn't even go for the full interest because we have to stick on Bella in this boring ass depiction of depression. Speaking of Bella's depression, it's so freaking... I hate this so much watching it. I understand Bella is heartbroken with Edward. Trust me, if I was a woman, I would be upset too. But the point where she is this freaking depressed, where she has her dad and mom worried about her, screaming like,
Don't try it.
I get it. Bella is meant to be freaking depressed and heartbroken, but damn, you only knew this man for 6 freaking months since the first movie, so it shouldn't even really that matter. Plus, I understand women are depressed sometimes when they go through divorce or they get broken up with by a boyfriend, but my freaking God, is this overkill? It is overkill to the point where it just got on my nerves. So like, I wanted to freaking pull my hair out watching these scenes because this character was just sitting here that freaking depressed. I get it. She's fucking depressed. But for God's sake, there's other men out there. If you got broken up by someone else, go talk to someone else, man. There's plenty of other guys out there for you to talk to.
Oh my God!
The hell, man?
Oh my God!
It makes no sense as to why Bella acts this way. And I've read this part of the book, but even in the book, it is not. No girl acts like this over a fucking vampire, over a fucking man. So there are some actors in this movie that get severely underused here. Like Laurent and the Kendrick and those characters, Some of the Cullen members get underused. Even Robert Pattinson gets underused. And he's still giving the monotone performance, but he is trying to act circus through this shit. And there's moments where he's in the movie and he is basically like, Bella, don't do this. I'm like, yeah, you're not even there to help her, so what does it matter? So it gets to a point where some of the effects in this movie, some of the effects looks fucking terrible in this. You have a $50 million budget. There are some effects that looks good, but there are some effects where it's so fucking bad. I'm gonna say it didn't look good. I say it didn't look good. I'm gonna say it didn't look good. There are some moments where werewolves are just acting like freaking, was just transition, and there are some moments with super speed that feels incomplete. And I know visual effects are hard to complete. I get that. Trust me, I understand that. But damn it, you gotta at least have something going on, man. Also gets to the point where this movie becomes so fucking laughable in this. And even with Charlie, he's trying so damn hard to be patient and earnest and kind to Bella. And some moments he just talks to him like, nah. And even Jacob, he gets turned into a freaking toxic, F-boy. So seriously. It's like that. And you would think with the nightmares of her PTSD, that would make it more understandable than the real explanation. Her nightmare in the forest that she's searching for Edward, it's like, damn. It's even confusing with some of the stuff like astral projection with Edward. And this series had all the girls swooning. So, wow, for God's sake. Really has a mental breakdown. Look, this movie is mentally unhealthy, and there are moments of intensity and moments of potential which is severely fucking undercut. It is so undercut to the point where it's not fucking funny. So wow, you couldn't even freaking, I'm not making this shit up. And let's get into the spoiler alert. This movie ends with a fucking love triangle. This movie ends with a fucking love triangle between Jacob and Edward. The team werewolf versus team vampire, or team, I don't give a, how about you all have a freaking three-way and just be like,
Yay! Let's be in love together!
yeah! No, guys, it hurts me having to say this because even though this franchise is one of my go-to guilty pleasures, for the 15 years that I've seen this, which will be in November, I should not have this much hatred for it. New Moon is a movie that, even as a guilty pleasure, this movie is worse the more that it gets. Not only is the worst film in this franchise, it is one of the worst movies ever, one of the worst sequels ever, with terrible love story, bad writing, some unintentionally funny moments, moments of potential, a draggy story, some dodgy effects, and moments of things that doesn't get even underused or gets interesting. There's a few moments I liked, some of the actings, the score, even the soundtrack album, which is actually really damn good, once again. Always. I like the Alexandre Desplat score in this. And even the soundtrack album is fine. But there's just too many things that frustrates the hell out of me for me to give this movie any sort of enjoyment. So this is a movie that I can look at as a guilty pleasure, and I can enjoy some of the stupidity when I want to watch this as part of the series and watch all of these together. But aside from that, this is one I'll never watch again unless I'm watching this in a marathon. And for that, you get one rating, and one rating alone, as a guilty pleasure. For being the most boring one, for having a lot of the stupid dumb shit just turn up to 15%, and for being the most boring ass movie in the series.
Well, that's going to do it for the video that you just watched. If you want to see more, my channel icon is up here. If you want to see more content from me, all my social medias are right here in this end card. I will also leave a playlist and a video here for you to see what the channel is about. As always, acknowledge me, stay Epictastic, join the Epictasticness, and you guys keep it cool.